بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. نبدأ الجلسة الأخيرة لهذا اليوم، وإن شاء الله راح تكون also continuation استمرارية لموضوع التوحد. راح يكون معنا إن شاء الله مجموعة من المتحدثين المتميزين. نبدأ في البداية بدكتور محمد الدوسري، وراح يعطينا نبذة عن تقنيات استشعار اضطراب طيف التوحد، الفحص والتدخل والتدخل. والدكتور محمد he is part of the Cleveland Clinic في اليونايتد ستيتس. فبليز.
شكرا دكتور علي. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. So in the coming 20 minutes I'm going to try to cover this area of sensing technologies and maybe focus more on eye tracking. But I like the concept of coming to conferences only to lay a base for the next move in terms of collaboration with any given place. 4 years ago, not to the date, but 4 years ago, I was invited to speak at this same conference, and this is the first slide that I had that time, which shows, or what I presented is the evidence-based and promising innovations in autism. And I'll show you the exact slides, unmodified slides that I presented 4 years ago, and just to show the continuation. And then a lot of this we'll be talking about this afternoon. So 4 years ago, I came and presented 5 promising innovations. The number 5 was actually robotics. And I put it down on the list. At the time, I thought robotics might not flourish as much as it did in the last few years. But I actually, since that time, have worked personally with both with the Yale Child Development Center and with local Gulf states to move forward the use of robotics. So in 2016, along with Yale, we've held joint workshop in the use of social robotics in autism. And then a year ago, we published a joint collaborative article about how do we culturally adapt it to the Middle East. And I'm happy to say that in continuation, I invited my next speaker, who is Dr. Ben Robbins, who will talk to us about his own experience about using Casper prototype robotics in the UK. And more importantly, we are trying to move it forward to Saudi Arabia. So hopefully in 4 years, I'll be able to present that, or maybe Ben and I will be able to present the next stage there. Number 3 on that list, and again, unmodified, was telemedicine, using telemedicine platform. At that time, we presented the Cleveland Clinic platform, which is synchronous telemedicine, and we presented other solutions. Again, we've worked in that aspect to more recently, over the last year, to try to bring what is known as NODA to the kingdom, and again, to move this one step forward. The speaker who will follow Ben Robbins is Chris Smith, who will talk specifically about this topic. And again, we're hoping to make this a reality. We've already piloted this, and we're trying to move it again in 4 years. Hopefully we'll come together and present our findings. But for the rest of the 20 minutes, I'm going to present what at that time made as number 2 in the list, which number 3 in the list, sorry, which is eye tracking. And at that time, I just joined the Cleveland Clinic, and we were hoping to move it forward again to the kingdom and neighboring countries. And 2 major, milestones in my life, which is working with Tom Fraser, who pioneered the development of the autism risk index using eye tracking, and we reviewed all the sensing technologies to make sure that we are aware of what else is available there to be either used in combination or compared to the eye tracking. So for the remainder of the time, what I want to try to cover is how did we get here, what are we doing, and what is the next step. And really part of how the need of innovation, why don't we stay where we are, is this striking slide where kids are suspected to have the diagnosis by family at the age of 2, but they're only diagnosed about the age of 4 in the US. So that is a major motivation to improve the status quo. If you combine this with the fact that intervention is only, or not only, is maximally helpful below the age of 2, and if you think about the cost of taking care of children with autism if they do not move out of the spectrum, to be about 1 to 2 million per child, again, in the US. So current diagnostic methods are good, but they do depend on either parent reports, interviews, or direct clinical observation. And to just show that in order to validate technology, you have to validate the usual or the more conventional tools. So what we've done in Saudi Arabia previously is we were part of the group that actually introduced ADOS in 2006, and then part of the group who translated and adapted the ADIR, and I led more recently the group that translated, validated, and used a screening tool, the SCQ, in a countrywide epidemiology study in a neighboring country. So we've done this, we're okay with this. What we're trying to do is, can we improve? And the reason to try to improve this is, if you think about the current methods, they are influenced by subjective perceptions, either from the parents or from the professionals. And then they do require a lot of training. For professionals, they need ongoing inter-rater reliability checks. They're time-consuming, they're expensive everywhere, including the US and Saudi Arabia. And if you're stuck in trying to do the best, the standard of care, then there will be a lot of waiting lists and a lot of delays in diagnosis and subsequent interventions. So in order to think about this, we want to try to move to a biomarker, and that's a lot of area of interest. And to develop a biomarker is not easy for autism. It's been really troublesome, and the reason is maybe not because of anything but the heterogeneity in the disorder itself. What causes autism is probably different, the way it manifests is different, and the age of presentation is different. But a lot has been tried, and the main motivation is for the diagnosis. And obviously, if you don't establish a diagnosis, you cannot go beyond this. So the next motivation would be to try to prognosticate, try to better delineate subtypes, and try to see how they eventually have a long-term outcome. Another major motivation is trying to really have an objective, something that you can quantify for assessment of any ongoing intervention. How do you know your intervention works? At a group level or at an individual level? How do you make sure that that individual is improving in a quantitative manner? If you think forward about all the studies, including interventions, you'd have to either define subtypes and maybe match them to a given intervention, or do the other way around, which is actually design specific intervention for specific subtypes. So for all of the above, it's definitely a major interest to develop a biomarker. But biomarkers have been thought to be mostly blood testing, imaging of some sort, but they don't have to be. If you think about a biomarker, it's an objective indicator to accurately and reliably identify ASD. It has to be developmentally appropriate, and it has to have the potential of detecting future before manifestation of symptoms. And maybe the answer was right in front of our eyes. Maybe it was our eyes, literally. So the unusual patterns of visual attention is emerging as a potential marker, whether you want to keep it there or say a biomarker of autism. And this is not anything surprising to anyone. Infants, normal infants, would attend to social stimuli right after or soon after birth, and even since Kanner's time, it has been recognized that issues with attention, visual attention, is a core manifestation of ASD. So if we all agree on something, at least here for today, for this presentation at least, deficits in gaze is a hallmark of ASD, and it is included in all gold standard screening or diagnostic interventions. If we agree on this, then everything beyond this is just how do we measure it, rather than we are having an issue with the premises. If we think about eye tracking, it might be the earliest emerging warning sign of autism. It might give us an indication of an early neuronal circuit organization abnormalities in autism. And the good thing about checking eye tracking is it's an intermediate level of marker. You can either go down to underlying neurocognitive networks or go up to everyday functions and dysfunctions. So if you think about it, it's not like a more of a basic biological marker, or it's just a behavioral marker. It's actually somewhat both and can be combined with both ends of diagnostic and screening methods. If you think again about how difficult would it be compared to other potential biomarkers, including AEGs, functional MRIs, etc., here it's much easier to acquire it and does not require a lot of preparation. If you see this picture, you just hold a child next to or in front of a screen. Administration time is less than 10 minutes. There are some actually paradigms that would be a minute and would have a somewhat reasonable sensitivity but high specificity, can be automated, requires limited technical expertise and no ongoing reliability checks. The importance of this is we do not have to adjust the current clinical paradigms. So you still can interview your patient, you still can do the screening modules, etc. It just would be one additional tool. The only difference, it would be an automated tool. So think about it as the CQ, MChat for the younger kids, or what have you, SRS. And the interesting thing about, obviously, about eye tracking is that there will be multiple stimuli that might be appropriate for an age group or another. For example, for the younger age group, 6 months, which is about the youngest age group that this has been experimented with, people use mostly a fixation to eyes or social scenes versus geometrical stimuli. When you grow up a little bit, mostly use didactic and joint attention beds in preschool and older children. When you go older, you get complicated interaction and you want to see kids paying attention to dynamic social stimuli. So the potential for age group is much wider. There are a lot of evidence, and we don't have, unfortunately, time to show this, but even in families who have the broad autism phenotype, there are subtle abnormalities in these relatives. So to move forward, what we are interested in is in zooming into the younger age group, and again, there are multiple paradigms there, and it would give us a very early developmental origin of the social dysfunction of ASD. And because of lack of time, I just wanted to move forward and present the current status, what are we doing, which is years ago, Fraser at the Cleveland Clinic, and there are a lot of other people who led the field before him, Amy Klein currently at Emory and others, have led the field in the 90s and early 2000s. But then the focus at that time was single stimuli. What was unique about Fraser's development is he tried to develop and then replicate an objective measure of autism risk index, not one stimulus, as we'll see in a minute. So this would be averaging of dwelling time in multiple stimuli in multiple regions of interest. If you see these images, you kind of see what you're doing, which is you're there and doing your ADOS or doing your non-formal evaluation, trying to look at attention, look at visual gaze modification, and then with joint attention, looking at or pointing at objects. And then there are obviously multiple other stimuli, as we'll see in a minute. But this is compared to best practice, which is the sample there that was obtained was actually coming to be diagnosed for autism in a classic manner. The age group were between 3 and 9 years of age. And the gaze information were collected independently and blindedly from the clinical diagnosis. So that provided a good way of knowing whether this is validated or not. The method was using a commercially available eye tracker, and this has been described multiple places, so I will not go into this. But the most of the measurements does with dwell time and dwell time in regions of interest. And if you see there, the region of interest would be upper face. Again, this has been validated from a lot of previous studies. Lower face, and then the social stimulus versus distractors. So you're trying to know whether they pay attention to the social stimuli. If they do, where do they pay attention to? Obviously, normally you pay attention to the eyes. If you pay to the mouth, that's not usual. If you're completely distracted and you're looking to these strategically placed distractors, then there is an issue. Multiple others have developed the use of static facial effects and then biologic versus non-biological pairing. What I want to do is just show you part of the stimuli. And unfortunately, sound is not playing. That's what we delayed us from starting. But if you see at the side, this is an actual experiment running with a child with autism. The child with autism will only see the screen where it's on the top right place where the video is showing. This is the researcher or the examiner monitor, and you can see the yellow dot moving around. The eyes are seen there in white against that dark background, and on the left side you're seeing the stimuli being moved to one to another. Short stimulation period, switching to another stimulation, switching to another stimulation. And they vary in complexity because this was developed to screen all age groups. We'll talk about this later. There are intentionally strong emotions versus less strong emotions. So this is the one stimulus that was used by a lot of groups, which is just having social versus geometric, and with a high specificity and a lower sensitivity. But here the index combined many stimuli, all short bursts, to make sure that they do not lose attention, and there is a lot of variety to cover all age groups. If you think about it, it's like doing ADOS module 1 or 2, how appropriate it is, and then 3 and 4. You're trying to cover all age groups, but you're almost doing the whole test to everyone. If you think about the time that you would need all the battery, the full battery, it's 7 minutes. That's it. That's all what you need, including calibration. So amazing. The studies that used one single stimuli used less than a minute of estimation time. So obviously, as a screener, you can't beat this with even an STQ or MChat, etc. And here you're trying to get an objective assessment, trying to stratify your wait list or whatever you want to do it. Or maybe one time we'll be able to combine it And that's what we're trying to do now, combined with other models to just maybe have an fully automated or maybe at least partially automated screening and diagnostic model. Here we're just spending some time to just show that every single stimulus, there are a region of interest. The region of interest makes sense in terms of if it's, for example, geometric versus non-geometric, then you would be wanting to look at the social stimuli overall will be scored, but then more specifically if they look at the face. And if you look down to things that are more complicated, then the region of interest are diverse. What is interesting about the development here, it was done all a priori, which is interesting, and it was kept a priori. And this is now in the follow-up studies is being changed, and we'll talk about it toward the end. So this was compared to the best practice, which is this huge list of testing, which would be done in any other clinical center, which is an interview, medical history, ADOS-2 for the young ones, and multidisciplinary meeting. This is all independent of the eye gaze analysis. And the information that was generated and published in the American Journal of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry is really remarkable. Only 6 patients were excluded because they would not pay attention, at least for 40% for ROIs. Which is interesting is that kids with typical development fail this more likely than ASD subjects. And if you pay attention to the table, which again is complicated, but to summarize it on the left, as expected, ADOS differed between subjects and ASD subjects and non-ASD subjects. That's given. What was surprising is that SRS and the CL, the LEST, actually failed to correlate with ADOS, which just should make you wonder. And this is not obviously a striking news, but it didn't differentiate between the two groups. ADOS obviously did discriminate between the two groups. The tracking ratio did not differ between the two groups, meaning the percentage of time they spent was about 70% for each group. This is the effect size, which is Cohen's D, measured for all single ROIs. And if you see, typically above 80 is considered to be good. There is a lot there, but there are many, many ROIs that were collected and actually part of the index that were of lower effect size. And if you keep this in mind, what would happen if we just focus on the more yielding ROIs? The typical way to try to assess the validity of a tool is to do the ROC analysis. And here, if you think about the AUC area under the curve, being above 80 is acceptable, above 90 is excellent. The initial sample was 0.9, and the replication was 0.85. And there was substantial increment over SRS-2, meaning if you do just SRS or add to it the eye tracking, it would be more correlating with ADOS diagnosis. And even one step further, trying to see the severity in the score. If you compare the ADOS total calibrated severity score against the autism risk index, there is good correlation with an R of 0.58 and 0.59. So a lot of detail that would not be able to cover in the allotted time of 20 minutes, and I promised Robin to give him 2 minutes. So I'm just going to conclude here and say that with an aggregate eye tracking stimuli, you are able to show that you outperform a standard screening tool, and you're able to correlate with a gold standard research level diagnosis. So this is extremely promising. We're always about critiquing everything, obviously. The sample is not large, and it included multiple ROIs. And all ROIs, as mentioned, were calculated or determined a priori. independent of the validity of the ROIs. So to think about the next steps, and here's what is important, where we learn from what we did, what we are doing, and planning the next step, which hopefully we'll be able to implement at least partly in Saudi Arabia, is to try to target a larger sample, and this would be only obviously available by
1 minute.
1 minute. So only by using multi-center design, using a younger age group, and select ROIs with higher validity, and then maybe weighing your stimuli. So the way to go, and this is where we have a meeting in 2 days, is to go for the for CACs and use their complex computing unit, and trying to analyze this with AI. And use it maybe in combination with other innovative methods. And we already have submitted a proposal which is accepted in principle with CACs and other institutions here. But here's what is important. What we're trying to do is an accurate diagnosis and ongoing assessment. We're trying to combine the use of eye tracking maybe with NODA, which Chris Smith will talk in a little while, to try to do an earlier and more accurate diagnosis. And this is my last slide. So you might say this is a dream, but I take this as a compliment. This is what we engraved at the Center for Autism Research. The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams, but they're possible. And lastly, this is what the Cleveland Clinic engraved in their own place, which actually imitates or mimics that. Say as an hour. This is. The future belongs to those who seize opportunities created by innovation. Thank you very much, and maybe I'll hear some questions later on.
Okay, we have time for one question. If there is any.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله حمد الشاكرين وصلي وسلم على سيد الأولين والآخرين. دكتور محمد، شكرا على هذه الملاحظة، على هذا التقديم الجيد. نحن بصفتنا متعاملين مع حالات التوحد في بعض المراكز اللي هي موجودة. الملاحظ أنه التركيز البصري يعطى يعني لفترة محددة، ويلاحظ أنه لو كان المعلم يدرس مثلا عبارة معينة وتستلزم أنه حتى تلزق هذه العبارة دقيقتين، ولو دخل أحد ولفت انتباه أو سلم أو أتحرك، يبدأ المعلم من جديد يعيد. هذه موجودة عندهم. كيف يمكن أنه يتخلص المعلم من هذه بالنسبة للي موجودين؟ هذا واحد. المسألة الثانية، كان الطفل التوحدي يختلف عن يعني بطبيعته بيختلف عن بقية المتلازمات الأخرى. بقية المتلازمات الأخرى الطفل التوحدي يبدو في شكل أقرب ما يكون إلى الإنسان العادي أو الطفل العادي، والبعض منهم كان بيقول إنه الطفل التوحدي إذا جلس نحى على جانب في الأولات، كانوا بعض الأمهات لما يشوفوا طفل هادئ للغاية، وبعض منهم اكتشف فيما بعد أنهم أطفال توحديين، يقول يا عمري عليه ولد هادي، ولد متعب. كيف يمكن للأم أنها تكتشف هذه الحاجات المبكرة في الطفل بالنسبة لهذه الحالات؟
طيب، هو السؤال هو عن طريقة تفعيل التواصل البصري مع التقنية اللي احنا نتكلم عنها هي للتشخيص. ممكن في تطبيقات لها لأن تقيم أو تحسن حتى من التواصل البصري، لكن هذا مش الموضوع اللي تكلمنا عنه. الاكتشاف المبكر طبعا مهم جدا. فيه كثير من القوائم اللي هي قوائم علائم التشخيص المبكر، من بينها عدم التواصل البصري، لكنه برضو هذا مش الموضوع اللي تتحدث عنه هالتقنية هذه.
شكرا دكتور محمد. Our next speaker دكتور بن روبنز. دكتور بن هو زميل أبحاث كلية علوم الحاسب من جامعة هارتفورد شاير في المملكة المتحدة، وراح يتحدث لنا إن شاء الله عن الروبوتات كأدوات علاجية وتشجيع التواصل ومهارات التفاعل الاجتماعي لدى الأطفال المصابين بالتوحد.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank the organizing institution for this event, and it's really a privilege to be here today. Despite some hiccups that we have with the sound in my presentation, but I think we will survive and we will go on. We'll try. Okay, so the presentation is about robots as therapeutic tools encouraging communication and social interaction skills in children with autism. And I'm based in the University of Hertfordshire in the UK. So we started in 1998, Professor Kerstin Dotenan started the idea of the Aurora project, working with children with autism and robots, how robots can help. And at the time we were pioneering in the world. I joined 2002 and no one else did it. And hopefully by now a lot of robotics labs in every university using robots to help children with autism. We started in 1998, as I said. In 2005 we developed the robot Caspar. Before that we had all sorts of mobile and other small humanoid robots. We developed Caspar in our labs and we used various funding from European projects to progress the work. Recently, in the last 2 years, we also did some fundraising to enable us to produce 20 of these robots, and we give it on loan to schools and family homes. And we extend our research. We learn a lot from the families and from the schools. So you might ask, why robots? The first question that everyone asks, why do we need robots? And we know that our social behavior can be very subtle. One smile in one context make one meaning, a smile in another context might make another meaning. And it's for a person with autism who cannot understand social cues and facial expression, it might be very confusing. So with the robot, we simplified everything. We make it very predictable, there are no surprises, and the child feels it's reliable and it's safe environment. And because it's robot, we start very simple and we gradually increase the complexity according to the needs of specific child. Real-time interaction in playful scenarios allow full body experience, and enjoyment during play, it's a main reward, and social interaction is positive experience for the children. I want to say two important points that I probably will repeat several times. Robots are tools, not replacement of human contact. There is nothing can replace human-to-human contact. Robots are just to reach the children as a tools in the hand of therapists or teachers or parents, not instead of. And robots, we call it as a social mediators. We try to find ways to encourage the children to interact with other people, with other children, with other family members, which is much more important than in playing with a nice toy like a robot. So these two key points that I probably will repeat several times, because in robotics, usually they try to develop more clever robots, autonomous robots. We'll come to it in the next slide, I think. Okay, again, which robots? There are so many robots. There are so many. There are animal-like robots, creature-like robots, humanoid robots. Do we want robots to look like completely like human? Like today there are some androids that look really, you can't make a difference who is the person, who is the robot. Or do we want like completely non-human machine-like robots? Or anything in between? All these need to be considered. Different robots may help achieve different objectives. There is no one solution fits all that will solve all the problems. It depends, first of all, who are the users and what are the objectives. Then we can target specific technology that may help, but not the other way around. Because a lot of the time I see the technology driving forward, and the secondary consideration is how it can apply to this user or that user. I think it needs to be the other way around. The user comes first, the children come first, then you can think what might help them. The application is as important as the technology. And we had various robots over the years, most of them now retired in the cupboard. We have some mobile one and a Lego one that we built, and this is the first robot that we used, a humanoid robot, during my PhD. And then we developed Caspar, and the rest of the talk will be about Caspar. Just to say that in our studies, we try to give as much freedom to the children. From the child point of view, it's playtime. We have our own objectives, of course. We design games with specific objectives that might help therapeutic or educational objectives, but we try to give as much freedom to the children, providing it's, first of all, safe for the child and safe for the robot, because there are some children that behave really harsh and they can destroy the robot or harm themselves, and of course we won't allow that. But as long as there are as much freedom as we can, we provide the children. For them, they come because they want to come, not because someone forced them to sit and do some tasks. So this is the Caspar that we developed. This is the first version, and now we are version 5. And I want to start with a video clip, if the sound will, we managed to sort it, from news report from Reuters that went earlier on last year, that went actually around the globe, but it's concise and precise, and we'll see. Hopefully you can hear something. No, I'm afraid this side, because of the HDM, it doesn't provide any sound, even not in the computer. Unfortunately, it's not working. Okay, we'll have to skip it. It's not working. It's working without the HDM, without that, but with that it's not working. So I will just describe you what's happening in the video, basically. You can see Caspar here have very special happy expression, sad expression, and we simplified. You see, it's like human-like, but simplified. Because we found the children, and it's look a bit weird for us. Some people pass this and say, oh, it's look creepy. But the children with autism, because it's simplified, most of the children just coming and interact with it and play with it and touch it and explore it. If they rough with it, the child give response. He said, ouch, you are hurting me. Say, oh, this is nice, you're tickling me. Here we did, this is a specific school, we did something about food, because some children has a lot of difficulty during mealtime in the school, and we found that if they start to pretend play with the robot about eating, and it's helped enormously. We had a report from, this is the deputy head of this nursery. This one at the moment, it's playing children rhymes. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hand. And here it's a feeding time. And then children that had difficulty and didn't eat with everyone else start to eat with everyone else also. And the deputy head here said it was a massive improvement for some of the children. And this is a remote control that we presented. We control the robot. We give the children sometimes the control. And the children like actually to control the robot. Here we're doing some imitation games, and I will go to more specific video clips later. So this is the Caspar, and we have a female version as well, but we haven't used it yet with the children. It can be autonomously responding to tactile interaction, and now we're building current project. We don't have it on the slides, but actually, we build much more autonomy to the robot. The robot can recognize the different children, it can recognize the different toys, and he know much more about the environment. But still, we don't leave it as an autonomous robot. It just allows us more freedom to do more things with the children. Caspar has the potential benefits of realistic and familiar human features, nose, eyes, mouth. That's what we try to encourage the children to learn, to interact with other people, so we have these human features. But it's obviously, and we keep it on purpose, non-human. They can see bits of plastic and metal. They can hear the sound of the motor. They know that this is a motorized toy. And for them, this is what we believe, that's what helped them. They open themselves to the robot and not to the people, but because of they know that this is not a person. And hopefully it will help them engagement with other, invite them direct physical engagement with the robot, and then they have the engagement with other people. And I'm going to show very briefly several video clips, even without the sound, but I will describe, to show different examples of what we can achieve with the children. This example is a very basic turn-taking game. One child controls the robot with the keypad, the other child imitates the robot. We had different objectives for the children. This child is very bossy, he likes to be in control all the time, so his objective was to give the control to another child and stay in the game, because if the teacher told him to give it to another child, he will give it and walk away. But to stay in the game and give the control to another child. And the other child is very passive. For him, the objective was to be able to press the buttons in his turn without being told to press the buttons. And we can see here, this one now controlling, and they're giggling, they're happy. We had a child that was actually very violent and didn't tolerate other children. And because he liked the robot so much, he actually stayed in this game, and eventually we brought him to play with other child.
4 minutes?
5 minutes.
4.
4. Oh, yeah, it's even... Okay, so we go. This child, oh, it's a shame. It's really a shame. This is very nice video clip of a child that all reports from school that he's very quiet, sits in the corner, is not interacting with anyone. And if the teacher comes with something, he will take it from the teacher, but he himself won't initiate any direct look at the teacher. With the robot, immediately, the very first day, he come, he touch it, he hug it, he look at the face, he look at the eyes, he continue looking at the eyes blinking, so the sound of the blink, and he will keep doing it week in, week out. Not only the novelty of a new toy, but actually he telling me something all the time about the eyes. He had no language. I mean, he didn't use a language all the weeks that I was there. We jump forward because I don't have time. Now he's interacting with the robot, and I want you to see how he will start to look at the robot very closely. Come on, he will look at the robot very closely, and then he will look at the teacher very closely. And the teacher said this was the very first time that he initiated direct look at her face. You look what's happening now. He look at the robot at the eyes, and he will looking at the teacher, and the teacher says it's the very first time. And I will jump to the end, to the very last. He continued telling me something about the eyes of the robot. This is week 6. He fascinated by it, but something happened there. This is very important. 2 important things happened. We had pigeons landing on the windowsill. And first he take my attention to something that it's not the robot, and this is very important. Because usually the context is the robot. Now it's taking my attention to something that it's not the robot. But also he whispered, you can't hear it now, but he whispered, he said, what's that? And I was shocked. I mean, I didn't realize, only later when I analyzed it, I realized. He whispered, he had language, he just didn't use language all the time. But he felt secure enough to use language. And I showed this to the parents, and they were overwhelmed. The father said in his board, he said, I have now hope. First, he see him interacting with someone, with me, which I'm a stranger, and also use the language. We'll skip all this because we don't have time. It's a shame. This is a video about a child that hit the robot a lot, but we take it as a safe environment to teach him that there might be some consequences to his action. So the robot say, ouch, you're hurting me. And I tell the child, look, sad face, why, what's happened? He end up after a few weeks say, sorry, Kaspar, and he understands that there is some consequences to his action. This video, again, it's meaningless without sound. But the child, I will tell you just a quick story about this child. The child looked very sweet, very gentle, helping about happy and sad. And he's happy, he's sad. And he used to have tantrums. And he had 4 teachers. When he had a tantrum, 4 teacher assistants had to hold him down whilst he has a tantrum. But the important thing is, when he was relaxed, he started to communicate it to the teachers. We say, oh, Ronnie is happy. After doing it with Caspar all the time, happy and sad, he said, Ronnie is happy. And the teacher know when he said that, they can let him go. And there is an interview with the mother that says he started to do it at home. He started to say, Mommy is happy, Ronnie is happy, Ronnie is sad. And she said it's the first time she had this kind of communication with her son. He said, now happy. He learned happy and sad from the robot. Okay, I think we're running out of time. I could go on and on. This child started to sing for the first time. This nursery, they used to have children rhymes every end of session. And some children sang, some children didn't. So I produced the songs into the robot. And this child, it was a very quiet child, but he ended up being a chatterbox. You couldn't stop him because he just sang with the robot all the time. Okay, this is Caspar meet royalty. This is the Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, the husband of the Queen. Here is with Jane Asher, the president of the National Autistic Society in the UK, and so on. They learn about Caspar, they endorse Caspar, and this is the interview with the parents that we can't hear, which I just told you. And I think, what next? We're working now on a business case so we can make it into a market ready, so hopefully there will be companies take it on because we want to see it. We have so many requests, so many demands from all over the world actually, so hopefully it will become available. Not only currently, as I said, we have 20 that we give it on loan in our support, but it needs to be a product actually. And with this I want to thank you. Unfortunately, that's what we could do without the sound.
Thank you very much for your time.
It's okay.
If there is any question, he will be around with us. Huh? Because of the sake of time, we'll move to the next speaker, دكتور كريستوفر سميث. هو متخصص في علم النفس، نائب الرئيس ومدير قسم البحوث في مركز موارد وأبحاث التوحد في الجنوب الغربي. دكتور كريستوفر, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mohammed, for inviting me to talk today, and thank you to the hosts for putting on this conference and making all the arrangements for everybody. My talk is on a method to improve capacity to serve for diagnostic professionals. Specifically, I'm going to speak about the naturalistic observation diagnostic assessment method. The reason that we're interested in doing this is obviously there is a growing number of people with autism in our community. Currently, the rates in the U.S., according to the Center for Disease Control most recent report in 2014, is 1 in 66 children. That's an increase from their original report in 2002, which was 1 in 150. So it's almost a threefold increase in the 12 years that they've been studying and monitoring the rates of autism in the community. What this really says is that there are a lot of people with autism in our community. We need to pay attention to that. And that, because there are so many people with autism, it means that there is an increased need for diagnostic professionals. But the problem is that there is a limited number of qualified professionals that can diagnose autism. If you look at what the professions are that can diagnose autism, it's psychologists, psychiatrists, neurologists, and developmental pediatricians. So that's a small number of individuals, really, when you think about it, who can diagnose autism. But to even narrow the pool further, being able to diagnose autism requires additional special training in addition to what their profession is. And to make matters worse for some families in particular, there's these professionals who can diagnose autism are usually concentrated in more metropolitan areas. So diagnostic procedures will vary from center to center. Some take a more multidisciplinary approach, like we heard Mohammed talk about earlier, they do at the Cleveland Clinic. Others will take a single practitioner. Regardless, it usually means multiple visits to a center for a family. When the visits and the evaluations requires a significant amount of resources and time for the professionals and for the center. If you think about the coordination of appointments just with family schedules and professional schedules, That alone takes a significant amount of time. The families have to then meet and establish rapport, and the professionals have to be able to establish rapport with the individual who's being assessed. They're coming to a strange place to do unknown things, so they need some time to kind of develop rapport so they can get the best kind of assessment. Human factors during the assessment process often slow down the process. Initial wariness, like I said, going and meeting a new person, going to a new place. Fatigue during the assessment process requires them to take breaks. Sometimes there's tantrums, lots of problems that will slow down the process and maybe even extend the number of visits. Let alone office space required to maintain a practice with in-person assessments. A nice reception area to welcome kids and welcome families, and then testing rooms to be able to do the work that you need to do to evaluate the behaviors and see the relationship to autism. So all of these factors lead to limited capacities within the professionals to see a number of kids in a given period of time. But all of these, because of these exist on the individual practitioner level, they also affect system-wide practices too. So statewide systems that need to approve individuals or determine that they meet criteria for autism before they can move on to begin treatment certainly slow down. There's bottleneck effects because of all of these things, and certain insurance companies experience the same types of slowdowns and problems with capacity. In addition to capacity, or because of the capacity issues, there are substantial delays between first concerns from parents and the diagnosis of their children. There's many reasons that lead to this. One is ineffective screening. Sometimes practitioners, general health practitioners, might tell parents to wait and see. You don't need to go and pursue an evaluation yet. Let's wait till we're really concerned. That means the family's losing months, several months, even sometimes close to a year of time during that wait-and-see type of approach. And then once they finally do get the go-ahead to contact a professional for diagnosis, they're faced with long wait lists to get in to see these qualified diagnosticians who can diagnose autism. And this makes it particularly difficult for rural families, live in areas with fewer professionals, so they need to travel long distances to see professionals if they're traveling to metropolitan areas. And this presents a great deal of family hardship. So if you think about a family that has a young child that needs to be evaluated for autism, they may have other young children too. They can't leave them home if there's no family around. So that means everybody, the whole family's got to travel to the center, sometimes several hours to get there for their appointment. And like I said, if these visits are occurring on multiple days, I mean, anybody who has small children will know that that's no easy task to maintain. So it really presents a significant hardship for families. So whatever it is that we're looking to alleviate the pressure or the capacity, limited capacity of diagnostic professionals, we need to adhere to what we respect as high quality, elements of a high quality diagnosis. So according to the practice parameters that are published by the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, there are two methods of assessment that should be included in any high quality diagnostic procedure. A developmental history interview with parents and direct observation of the child. So those are the two key elements. And many practitioners that are diagnosing autism are using either one or the other of these methods. There's some very nice data that comes out of the CDC that points to that. When implementing diagnostic procedures, structured assessments, some places will incorporate structured assessments, which are an advantage to the diagnostic procedure. They add uniformity to the process. The gold standard, at least in the United States, are the Autism Diagnostic Interview Revised and the Autism Diagnostic Observation Schedule. Both of these scales require training and significant time to master and to administer. But by far, I think the key element to any high-quality diagnostic procedure is expert clinical judgment. The assessments that we just spoke about, or any assessments that they're going to do in a clinic visit, should inform the clinical judgment of the expert. It shouldn't necessarily, the assessment shouldn't replace clinical judgment, but they should be providing the information to the clinical expert who's going to make the judgment call about whether or not the individual meets criteria for autism. So expert clinical judgment is really the most important component, I think, to preserve in any diagnostic procedure. So one method that we've been working on and developing to alleviate some of this limited capacity of diagnostic professionals is called the Naturalistic Observation Diagnostic Assessment, and it was developed to accelerate the diagnostic process by connecting families and the information that they can collect in their home to experts no matter where they're located. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this, but this is what the process looks like in a quick overview, and then we'll go over some parts into a little more detail. Is this a pointer? Yeah? Okay, I can't make that work. Anyway, I'll just point with my finger. So what we're going to see up here is with number 1, the family downloads an app, and I'll tell you that the app does not, the app itself does not diagnose autism. So the apps can't do that yet. So it might be some time. Oh, great, thank you. So the family downloads the app, and the app instructs them to collect videos in the home, and the videos then get uploaded from the phone to a secure web-based platform where clinicians with expertise will be able to log in and review the videos that are collected and identify symptoms that might relate that might support a diagnosis of autism. The symptoms all get organized according to DSM-5, which then populates a report all within the system that can go back to the family. Okay? So now we'll go over each of these steps in a little bit more detail so I can show you what's involved here. So on the app, you'll see that the families will see that there are, we want 4 videos in different situations. One is family mealtime, one is play with others, one is play alone, and one is an opportunity for parents to collect some video on behaviors that they have some concerns about, which are usually the behaviors that would prompt the evaluation in the first place. When a family presses one of the buttons, what they'll get is they'll see a video that instructs the family or the parent on how to set up the video scene and what kinds of behaviors we want to see during that scene. And it's also in written form too, and you can see it's not very long, but we do ask them to do things that will improve the clinical relevance of the videos, right? We want to see appropriate social communicative behaviors if the child can exhibit them. So we want the parent to prompt those types of behaviors to the child. And if the child's not able to do them, then that's meaningful for a diagnosis. So there's instructions for each one of those videos. Then what happens, the parent sets up the scene and they press record. Each video has a 10-minute time limit itself. It won't go more than 10 minutes. We do request that parents do get us the full 10 minutes if they can. Sometimes they can't, and if there is lots of relevant information, sometimes we can get enough information from shorter videos. But 10 minutes is the ideal amount of time. Now, the family sets up this video, or the phone is collecting this video in the home, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they are in the parent's home, and any sort of family embarrassing things can happen and be caught on video. So we want to give parents an opportunity to say, we don't want to send that video. So they can do that. They can delete the video, or they can say, yeah, that went as well as it's going to go, so we're going to go ahead and send the video. So then the parents make the decision to send the video to the web-based platform. Then once all videos are uploaded, then the clinician gets an email that says, hey, there are videos here for you to watch. And you see they're all organized by the 4 different topics. You can only see 3 of the videos here, but there are every video that is collected when they press play alone and sent will be located here. The system also allows us to message the family at this point through this this interface and say, hey, you know what, that last video wasn't so good, I couldn't really see the kid's face, I couldn't see what they're doing, can you please upload another video? So we'll see all of the videos that are uploaded for each category in this page. And then when it's time to begin the assessment, the clinician then clicks on the video and a new screen opens up. This is kind of dark. But what they're doing is they're watching the video, and when they see something that is of relevance, something that supports a diagnosis of autism, some sort of behavior that's noteworthy, or a good example of typical development, the rater pauses the video, and then from a list of preset tags that are in here, these behavioral descriptors, the clinician selects the best behavioral descriptor for the behavior that they just identified in the video. And you could see all of the tags that the rater puts into the video are marked by these thumbtacks above the progress bar in the video. So there's lots of behavioral examples within this one video. And this is a pretty typical case when we're assessing kids through NOTA. You get a lot of evidence that you have to work with. And just a quick idea about how the tags are organized. These are not an infinite number of behaviors. These are more behavioral categories that you can use to describe any number of behaviors. But this is where the clinical expertise comes in, where you're understanding what the behavior is that you're seeing and how to best categorize it. So you can see that the behaviors are falling across the social, behavior, communication domains, both verbal and nonverbal, and then a collection of typical development tags that are in the system as well.
5 minutes.
Okay. And then from the clinician's point of view, or what happens in the system after all of these tags are completed and all the videos are watched, the system now organizes all of the evidence that was extracted from the videos according to DSM-5 criteria. So that what you're looking at here is the A criteria in DSM-5, and this is the A1 criteria and the A2. And you can see a list of all of the evidence that was extracted from the video. So the clinician, or the psychologist at this point who's going to make the diagnosis, is reviewing all of the evidence and judging the quality of each behavioral example and how it relates to DSM-5. And they also have an opportunity to review developmental history information that the parents uploaded or entered a brief questionnaire about the child's developmental history when they established the account. And this is a relatively short, this is not a lengthy interview. It is just a questionnaire about what their current concerns are, and any type of developmental milestones that the child has achieved already, what are the delays, what are the concerns, a little bit about their cognitive performance. Again, it's by no means looking to replace any type of more in-depth cognitive assessment, but it does kind of lend more information to help help identify what's actually happening in the child and confirm what the clinician is assuming or discerning from all the evidence presented. After the clinician reviews all of this, or the psychologist reviews all of this, the system generates a report. This is what a report looks like. This is the first page, lists the center where that conducted the assessment. Parents get a nice letter to explain exactly what was happening, even though they know what was happening all along the way when they signed up to do NOTA. But this explains all of the elements of the report and what they're going to see. The report is then broken down by by all the DSM criteria, and then you can see the evidence that's listed under each criteria, and over here is the clinician's summary that the psychologist wrote while they were reviewing all of the videos. So they're getting the first-hand information that they want to hear from the psychologist, and who is explaining why the individual is meeting these criteria. And that goes on through the rest of the DSM criteria, all the way to the end, where they get a final summary report, and it's signed by the licensed psychologist. And then the parents get a copy of their developmental history questionnaire that's in there. They get a page of what their next steps, their recommended next steps should be. So they realize it doesn't just stop with the assessment, that there's other things that they need to do at that point going forward. And then they have a glossary of terms that were used when explaining each of why the child met the criteria in the first place. And then finally, there's an opportunity for them to call and ask additional questions. Just really quickly, we developed this process and then we did a validation study to make sure that it worked the way that we wanted it to work. So we recruited 51 children between the ages of 18 months and 6 years. 40 families were seeking an evaluation for their child. 11 families were parents of a typically developing child that we recruited to make sure that we weren't randomly diagnosing autism in individuals that don't have the disorder. So you could see in the comparison between the in-person assessment and NOTA, in the full sample we had an 88% agreement between the two diagnostic methods. And in families that were seeking an evaluation, we agreed in 85% of the cases. And all the rest of the psychometric properties were very much strongly in support of NOTA's accuracy. And we collected some inter-rater reliability data where we selected 10 raters that were located all around the United States, so nowhere near the center. And we sent them videos to review and see if they could come up with a diagnosis also based on the information that they received. And you could see 78% of the distance raters agreed with the result of the in-person diagnostic assessment in the full sample, and 72% in the evaluation-only sample. So in summary, while NOTA is a method to diagnose autism that's much briefer than the standard in-person diagnostic assessment, and it may not be perfect for every child out there, but at least the data that we collected in this initial study indicate that it's appropriate for about 85% of the children needing an evaluation. What that says is that 15% of the children may still require an in-person assessment. So who are these 15% of children? These are children with higher cognitive functioning and more age-appropriate abilities that are showing through on the video. They have fewer observable symptoms that make it much more difficult to observe and diagnose by video alone. But these are children also that may be difficult to diagnose even in person. So the way that this can affect and improve capacity is clinics using NOTA may be able to serve 85% of their clients who are seeking a diagnosis and see only 15% in the clinic. So if you just look at that ratio, and you could see how it can dramatically improve the capacity of a professional or in a clinic, and it will significantly reduce the burden on staff. So just in sum, I just want to thank everybody that was involved in this study. This was a collaborative study between Behavior Imaging, SARC, the center where I work, and Georgia Institute of Technology, and it was funded by the National Institute of Mental Health. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sober. Now, الآن يسعدني أن يكون معنا الدكتور تركي بن أحمد البطي، هو مستشار طب نفسي للأطفال والمراهقين، مدير قسم الطب النفسي للأطفال والمراهقين في كلية الطب جامعة الملك سعود. ما أدري إذا هو لا زال ولا لا. طيب، فراح إن شاء الله يحدثنا عن مشروع الدليل الموحد اضطراب فرط الحركة وتشتت الانتباه.
مساء الخير على الجميع. أشكر اللجنة المنظمة والدكتور علي والدكتور أحمد على قبول مشاركتي في هذا المؤتمر، وأشكرهم على حسن التنظيم. طبعا المحاضرة قبل الأخيرة والناس جاية من الساعة 8، فأكيد أن الوضع بيكون صعب شوي، لكن أعدكم إن شاء الله أنها 10 to 15 minutes تكون مركزة وواضحة. أبتكلم باللغة العربية لعلي يعني أجذب الاهتمام بشكل أفضل وأسرع للحضور. اليوم نتكلم عن الدليل الموحد لاضطراب فرط الحركة وتشتت الانتباه. الجمعية السعودية لاضطراب فرط الحركة وتشتت الانتباه قامت بجهد مميز اللي هو إيجاد دليل موحد على مستوى المملكة، ويعتمد من وزارة الصحة، ويكون هو الدليل المرجعي للمختصين والعاملين بالمجال الصحي من أطباء وأخصائيين نفسيين وتخاطب وتربية خاصة في قضية تشخيص وعلاج فرط الحركة وتشتت الانتباه. مقدمة على الجمعية ظهرت بثوب جديد أو أطلقت على نفسها اسم إشراق، وحتى الميشن والفيجن للجمعية هذه تغير من ناحية الرؤية والرسالة، فهي تطمح أن تكون a nation where people with ADHD flourish. أمة أو وطن يفخر بذوي اضطراب فرط الحركة وتشتت الانتباه، مع إيجاد رسالة مميزة to provide comprehensive specialized services for people affected by ADHD، اللي هي تقديم خدمات مميزة لذوي اضطراب فرط الحركة وتشتت الانتباه، غير كونها مميزة ذات جودة عالية. وهذه واحدة من المنتجات التي كانت مرسومة من عام 2017 إلى 2019 ضمن الخطة الثلاثية للجمعية. الجمعية كان عندها عدة أهداف من بين 2017 إلى 2019 على مستوى المنشأة نفسها وعلى مستوى المجتمع. واحدة من أهدافها هي إضافة المهتمين بالمجال الطبي بالجمعية وإيجاد الدليل الموحد، وهذه إحدى المنتجات التي تفخر الجمعية بوجودها كخدمة للمجتمع. من وين ظهر الأهمية هذه؟ احنا نعرف أنه ال ADHD نسبتها في السعودية عالية، ما هي بعيدة عن النسب العالمية. آخر دراسة سويناها أظهرت النسبة أنه كل فصل طلاب عادي من أولى إلى ثالث ابتدائي في 20 طالب واحد منهم عنده ADHD. وهذه الدراسة نشرت بأحد المجلات العلمية قبل تقريبا سنة، وأظهرت أنه معدل تقريبا 4 إلى 5% نسبة فرط الحركة وتشتت الانتباه في السعودية. لما نقول أنه واحد من كل 20 طالب في فصل ابتدائي، هذا يعطيك أهمية وصعوبة الموضوع، وعدم وجود دليل موحد قد يفاقم المعاناة. فواحدة من اللي دعتنا أنه ما فيه مرجعية للأطباء والمختصين كدليل موحد، كل يرجع يعني أي كتاب أو أي مرجعية علمية اللي ممكن تساعده في إيجاد الدليل الموحد أو يعني التشخيص المناسب. لكن هل هذا ينطبق على البيئة السعودية؟ هل هو مناسب؟ هل هو الأصح والأفضل؟ بعض الأحيان نتفاجأ من الأهالي أنه مثلا طفلهم تم تشخيصه ب10 دقائق أو مثلا ربع ساعة، فهل هذا مقبول علميا أو غير مقبول علميا؟ هذه من المعايير اللي حاولنا في هذا الدليل أننا نوجد مساحة واضحة للأهالي والمختصين بكيفية تشخيص فرط الحركة وتشتت الانتباه. ما فيه نموذج موحد يستطيع طبيب الأسرة، طبيب الأطفال، الطبيب اللي في مركز متخصص أنه يمشي على الدليل الموحد. آخر شيء أنه لما الأطفال هذول اللي يشخصون ب ADHD ينتقلون من مرحلة المراهقة إلى البالغين، ما في تراك أو دليل موحد يقدرون يمشون عليه بحيث أنهم يتلقون خدمات مناسبة. أغلبهم من يوم يتحول من الأطفال إلى البالغين أو الكبار تنتهي المتابعة الطبية، ما يعرف وين يروح، يعني من اللي ممكن يقدم له الخدوة المناسبة. فقررت الجمعية في 2017 إيجاد فريق متعدد التخصصات من مختلف الجامعات ومختلف المستشفيات ومختلف مراكز الأبحاث لاستنساخ أو أدابت اللي هو تكييف النماذج الموجودة. فإحنا ما اخترعنا شيء جديد، وإنما راجعنا جميع النماذج العالمية وشفنا وش اللي أفضل أو يكون مناسب للبيئة الموجودة عندنا. طبعا الفريق كان عدة تخصصات: طبيب نفسي، أطفال المراهقين، طبيب أطفال نمو وسلوك، طبيب أطفال مخ وأعصاب، صيدلانية كلينيكية، كان معنا طبيب أطفال متخصص بالCBG اللي هي وضع المناهج للدليل العلمي. كذلك معنا كان واحدة متخصصة بالنيوروسايكولوجي، وضع المعايير والمقاييس النفسية، ومعنا طبيب مخ وأعصاب أطفال متخصص في وضع الأدلة الإجرائية لاضطرابات الأطفال. فكان فيها الدكتور صالح الصالحي، الدكتور فهد البشيري، الدكتورة هيا الجودي، الدكتور ياسر عمار، الدكتور مدثر، الدكتورة هديل بخش من وزارة الصحة، فمن عدة جامعات ومراكز. الكويس بالموضوع أننا أضفنا شخص مصاب بالADHD معنا في اللجنة هذه، بحيث أنه يكون هو قريب من القرارات اللي نتخذها، ويكون يعرف هل هذا مناسب، هل هذا حقيقي، هل هذا واقعي ولا لا. فبس ما يعني ما نبغى نحط اسمه، لكن هو موجود معنا بالغ، كان عنده ADHD من الصغر، وهو موجود معنا من يوم بدينا اللجنة. كانت فكرة اللجنة أن نراجع جميع المراجع العلمية التي نشرت في الADHD، سواء التي أنشئت من البداية أو اللي adopted، يعني هم أخذوها انتقاء من أدلة علمية. وميزة الأدلة العلمية هذه أنها تعطي المختص والأهالي الحرية في معرفة سلبيات وإيجابيات كل تدخل، بحيث أنها تذكر لك جميع التدخلات العلمية وتذكر لك الإيجابيات والسلبيات. طبعا أفضل مرجعية علمية لقياس النماذج هذه أو كيف أننا نقيمها، كيف أننا نقيم النماذج هذه مناسبة ومطابقة، عن طريق tools أو أداة يسمونها agree to instrument، يسوي لك نقد علمي للأدلة الإجرائية اللي على مستوى العالم كله عن طريق 6 نقاط: scope and purpose, stakeholder involvement, rigor of developmental, clarity presentation, applicability and authorial independent. يعني يقيسون معايير دقيقة جدا لمعرفة أي المعايير هذه هو اللي ممكن يكون يعطيك أعلى مصداقية عالية. طبعا الميثود يعني حاولنا نسوي PubMed سيرش على كل الإيفيدنس بيس CBG، وتكون من منظمات يعني علمية أو داتابيس أو specialized society، وتكون ناشونال أو انترناشونال من 2011 إلى 2018، بحيث أنها تكون ما هي بعيدة مرة وتكون outdated ولا تكون يعني حديثة مرة. فحاولنا أن نجمع المرحلة ما بين 2011 إلى 2018 باللغة العربية والإنجليزية، وكانت إما original CBG أو يعني متبناه adopted. فوجدنا 6 أدلة إجرائية: الأمريكان أكاديمي أوف بيدياتريك، يونيفرسيتي أوف ميشيغان هيلث سيستم، ناشونال انستيتيوت أوف هيلث كير أند إكسلنس، المدرسة السنغافورية، المدرسة الأسترالية، والمدرسة الكندية. اللي أخذ أعلى درجة وكان هو المطابق بين أعضاء اللجنة هو النايس هو الناشونال انستيتيوت فور هيلث كير أند إكسلنس، هو يرجع للمدرسة البريطانية. وجدنا أنه هو الأشمل والمور كومبرهنسيف، ويعطي دقة عالية بالتشخيص والخيارات المختلفة أكثر من المدرسة الكندية أو الأمريكية اللي ممكن تلجأ للأدوية بشكل قد يكون فيه يعني مبالغة في التشخيص أو مبالغة في استخدام الأدوية. فاللجنة اختارت النايس، والكويس بالموضوع أن النايس كانوا ناشرين آخر جايد لاينز في 2016، لكنه قبل 6 أيام نزلوا الأبديتد تقريبا في آخر أسبوع من مارس، فأضفنا عليها كل الأبديتد نوتس. الآن اللجنة انتهت من وضع الدليل. الخطوة التالية هو عرضه على المجلس الصحي السعودي واعتماده من وزير الصحة ليكون مرجع لكل الأطباء والمختصين العاملين في المجال الصحي، بحيث أنه يوزع كدليل إرشادي وتشخيصي للمختصين. الفئة المستهدفة هو وضع بطريقة بسيطة جدا، بحيث أنه طبيب الأطفال اللي في أي مستوصف، طبيب الأسرة والمجتمع ممكن يستفيد من الامبلمنتيشن تولز. طبعا الدليل كدليل كبير جدا، لكنه في نهايته في بعض الصفحات اللي ممكن يستفيد منها الطبيب ويأخذ منها بعض المعلومات. على سبيل المثال للحصر زي الألغوريثم هذا حطيناه بطريقة يعني مرة مختصرة وبسيطة، بحيث أن الطبيب أو المختص في 10 خطوات بسيطة يستطيع أنه يشخص ADHD ويقدم للأهل التدخل المناسب. على سبيل المثال أنه أغلب التحاويل تجي أن الطفل عنده مشاكل سلوكية أو أكاديمية، فإذا كانت المرحلة يعني شديدة جدا، يعني الطفل أقدم على جرم ولا أقدم على مشكلة كبيرة، فيروح التقييم مختلف. لكن إذا كانت مجرد محول من مدرسة ومن والدين، في 5 خطوات للتشخيص و5 خطوات لوضع التشخيص التفريقي. على سبيل المثال الأعراض مكتوبة لكل مختص الأعراض، 9 أعراض، إذا جاب 6 من 9 بفرط الحركة، 6 من 9 بقلة التركيز والاندفاعية، هذه تروح للخطوة الثانية الأونست. متى بدأت الأعراض؟ قبل 12 سنة. طيب لمدة كم؟ 6 شهور في أكثر من مكان وأثرت على قدرات الطفل. فالخمس النقاط هذه تعطي المختص رؤية أدق، هل تشخيصي مناسب ولا غير مناسب. بعد ما يتأكد أنه أوكي التشخيص الأساسي هو ADHD، نبي نطمئن لا يكون في أسباب ثانية ممكن تكون هي اللي أدت للADHD. على سبيل المثال اللي هي النقاط الخمسة الثانية، هل في أسباب عضوية زي مثلا السليب أبنيا، انقطاع النفس وقت النوم، نوع من أنواع التشنجات يسمونه أبسن سيجر، بعض مشاكل الغدة الدرقية، فهذه فيها تشيك ليست الطبيب يمر عليه ويتأكد أن الطفل هذا ما عنده المشاكل هذه. الشيء الثاني، هل الطفل عنده مشاكل نفسية، وذكرنا له أهم شيء أن الطفل لا يكون عنده قلق أو اكتئاب، فالطبيب يتأكد أو المختص أن الطفل هذا ما عنده قلق أو اكتئاب. الثالثة، هل في فاميلي أو سايكو سوشيال ستريس. الأطفال بعض الأحيان تواجههم مشاكل فما يقدرون يعبرون عن المشاكل اللي يواجهونها بشكل مباشر، فتظهر على شكل سلوكيات، فيجب أن الطبيب يتأكد أن هذه السلوكيات اللي عند الطفل ما هي ناتجة عن سايكو سوشيال ستريس في العائلة. النقطة قبل الأخيرة أن الطفل هذا لا يكون عنده مشاكل في النطق وتكون واضحة وأثرت على نمو الطفل لدرجة أنه ممكن يكمل 4-5 سنوات وهو غير ناطق. والنقطة الأخيرة أنه لا تكون المشاكل هذه ناتجة عن صعوبات تعلم أو بطء تعلم academic and learning problem، لأن هذه ممكن تخلي الطبيب يروح إلى تشخيص آخر. فالألغوريثم هذا يساعد بشكل مبسط وسهل وعلمي أنه يقدم للمختص بغض النظر عن تخصص سواء طبيب أو أخصائي نفسي أو تخاطب وش الآلية للتشخيص المناسب. طبعا هذه واحدة من التولز اللي مضافة في الدليل الإرشادي، لكن فيه مقاييس مقننة، فيه إرشادات باللغة العربية، وفيه وضعنا يمكن شابتر بسيط للمعلمين والمعلمات، وش الأدوات اللي ممكن يستخدمونها في المدرسة أو كمساعدة للتشخيص والتحويل. هذه واحدة من التولز اللي أضفناها في الدليل بحيث أن تكون مساعدة لجميع المختصين. الحمد لله الدليل الآن مسجل بال NHS which is the National Institute for Health Search بمسمى Appraisal of Clinical Practice Guidelines for the Management of ADHD using the Agree to Instrument Systemic Review. وعندنا الآن على نفس الجايدلاينز هذه 2 publication it will be published soon إن شاء الله. طبعا هذا الجهد فريق متكامل، مو بجهدي أنا وإنما جهد فريق من الزملاء من المختصين والباحثين من جامعات سعودية ومراكز أبحاث ومستشفيات متخصصة. الجهد هذا ما تم بيوم وليلة، الآن كملنا 1.5 سنة من الاجتماعات المتواصلة. نتمنى أن يكون إضافة من الجمعية السعودية لفرط الحركة وتشتت الانتباه لوضع لبنة صحيحة لمسار فرط الحركة وتشتت الانتباه في المملكة العربية السعودية. شكرا لكم.
شكرا. في وقت لسؤال واحد، إذا حد عنده سؤال تفضل.
شكرا دكتور بطيء. محمد حج العنزي، محامي سعودي وعضو الرابطة العربية للثقافة والفكر والأدب في دبي. النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في رسالته للمقوقس عظيم القبط أهدى له المقوقس طبيب وماريا القبطية وشيرين وغير ذلك، والنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال للطبيب ارجع إلى أهلك فنحن قوم لا نأكل حتى نشبع. يقول الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم رفع القلم عن 3 ومنهم المجنون حتى يوفيق. جزيرة العرب في عام 532 كلمة مستشفى هي أصلها برمستان، هي كلمة فارسية. برما أي دار ستان المريض، دار المريض. ثم أنشأ في مصر في البداية أنشأ عيادة للمجانين كما قال النبي رفع القلم عن 3 منهم المجنون حتى يفيق. وفي عام وفي دمشق أنشئت كذلك أخرى في عام 763. فبعد ذلك أتت إلى جزيرة العرب. وعهد النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كله عهد حروب، كما نقول الحرب العالمية الأولى الحرب العالمية الثانية، ولم يعتني النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في ذلك كثيرا. ومع أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لكل داء دواء عرفه من عرفه وجهله من جهله إلا السام أي الموت. وزارة الصحة هناك كلمة أشمل من الصحة هي العافية. لماذا؟ يعني طبعا هي أكيد لا شك، لكن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عندما سألت عائشة في ليلة القدر قالت يا رسول الله ماذا أقول في ليلة القدر؟ قال لها قولي اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عني. فكلمة عافية، الله يعطيك العافية الله يعطيك الصحة. فلماذا يعني هذه المصطلحات تكون مستمرة كثيرا؟ ليش يعني هناك يكون تغيير في الأسماء يعني في هذا؟ كذلك النفس، يعني الأخصائي النفسي أو الطبيب النفسي أو هناك الأنفس كثير، هناك نفس مطمئنة وهناك نفس خبيثة وهناك الهوى وهناك النفس اللوامة وهناك يعني وهناك الروح إلى آخره. فأنا قصدي أن يعني هذه طبعا هو لكل داء دواء، وقصد المصطلحات لماذا تكون مستمرة إلى يعني مدى طويل. وشكرا.
أنا بستمد من كلامك بس جملة واحدة لما قلت رفع القلم عن 3 ومن ضمنهم المجنون. الطفل اللي عنده ADHD ما هو مجنون، هو طفل عادي وسليم، ما عنده تأخر في أي مراحل من مراحل النمو، للحركة للكلام للتواصل للفهم والإدراك، ويدرس في المدارس العادية ويحيا حياة طبيعية. مشكلته الوحيدة أنه ما يستطيع أنه يضبط سلوكياته من ناحية الهدوء داخل الفصل، التركيز والاندفاعية. أعتقد الرسالة اللي ممكن ناخذها من لقائنا اليوم أنه ال ADHD لا يعتبر إعاقة، هو اضطراب زيه زي السكر والضغط والربو والروماتيزم. يحتاج رعاية خاصة صح، يحتاج اهتمام من المعلم من الأسرة من المجتمع من وزارة الصحة من كل مؤسسات المجتمع المدني. لكن الأهم أنه ما يوصم الطفل اللي عنده ADHD أنه معاق أو أنه مجنون أو أنه من ذوي الاحتياجات الخاصة. ADHD is not a disability, it's a disorder، هو اضطراب. شكرا لكم، بارك الله فيكم.
Thank you, Dr. Turki. Now with our last speaker for the day, Dr. فهد النمري. هو أستاذ التربية الخاصة المساعد بجامعة الطائف. سيتحدث اليوم عن الرحلة من التشخيص إلى خدمات التدخل المبكر، استبيان لأكثر 290 ولي أمر مشخص باضطراب طيف التوحد في المملكة العربية السعودية.
السلام عليكم جميعا. So I'll be talking about a study entitled Journey from Diagnosis to Services. It's a survey of parents of children with autism here in Saudi Arabia. So this work is a collaborative between Taif University and Center for Autism Research. First, I'd like to thank the family who took the time to participate in the study and to share their experiences using and accessing autism services in Saudi Arabia. I also would like to extend my sincere thanks to the Ministry of Education who helped with the recruitment process. I also would like to thank the Center for Autism Research staff who also helped with this study. Also, I would like to thank the Center for Autism Research for generous funding. Our presentation, I'll start my presentation with an introduction, then I'll go to the aims of the study, the methods, the sample characteristic, the result, and I'll end my presentation with the discussion. We know that autism rate has increased dramatically over the last few years, and we know that many children with autism requires ongoing support, meaning throughout life. This support could cost across the lifetime 1.4 million to 2.4 million, and this can increase with a comorbidity of intellectual disability. Existing evidence suggests that early diagnosis and intervention could minimize the cost. Despite that autism awareness in Saudi Arabia is relatively new, governmental agencies, including the Ministry of Labor and Social Development, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, have put tremendous efforts to improve services. Yet, existing services are limited. Early diagnostic like screening and evaluation services occur in an unstructured manner. Many healthcare providers are untrained to work with kids with autism and their family. Many children with autism are yet to be identified. Children who have access to services are receiving services in special day classes or rehabilitation centers. And some children are actually receiving services outside of Saudi Arabia and in neighboring countries. However, there is, yes, we have some information about existing services, but we don't have systematic information about parents' journey from the time that they start noticing abnormality about their child development to the time that they start receiving the early intervention services. So our study aimed to bridge this gap. Specifically, we have 4 aims. The first one is to describe parents' experiences attaining the autism diagnosis for their children. Second is actually to examine the factors that associate with parent satisfaction with the diagnostic process. Third is actually to describe the use of early intervention services. And then finally is actually to identify the factor that may delay the age of treatment initiation and reduce the use of early intervention services. So we collected the data using an online survey. Our data collection period started from February to April 2017. As I mentioned initially, the Ministry of Education helped with the recruitment process. Specifically, they sent an email to every school district here in Saudi Arabia with information about the study and the link to the survey. Also, another link was made available on the social networking site of the Center for Autism Research. The survey contained 4 sections. The first section is to gather information about the family, including the family educational attainment, and then the family household income. The second section include information to gather information actually about the child, including the child age, gender, and the severity of symptoms. And then the third section is about the diagnosis, to examine parents' experiences attaining the diagnosis for their child. Specifically, we wanted to know what are the nature of the first concern, at what age the parents start concerning, how long did it take them to seek professional help, at what age the child was diagnosed. And then the last section include information to gather information about the early intervention services, specifically at the age of treatment initiation and the dosage of early intervention services, which was measured in hours per week. Data where we used univariate statistic, mean standard deviations, to provide an overview of our variable of interest. We also use bivariate analysis, specifically regression analysis, to characterize the relationship between our independent and dependent variable. Linear regression was used with the continuous outcome variable, and logistic regression was used with categorical outcome variable. So, our sample. So during the data collection period, 375 people attempted to open the survey, and then we excluded 82 survey due to substantial, because they were substantially missing a huge amount of data. So our final sample includes was 293 participants. So here are some characteristics about the sample. Most respondents were mother who offered children who attended school that were affiliated with the Ministry of Labor and Social Development. The response rate for the family of children who attended the ministry, attended school that were affiliated with the Ministry of Education was 6%. This is low, but it's considered appropriate given the lack of evidence about access and use of autism services in Saudi Arabia. Most children were lived in major cities including Riyadh, Jeddah, and Dammam. And they were of parents of higher educational attainment and were from different, of a wide range of household income. Household income was measured using Dr. Damagh measure, which is 8,000 riyal per month. Most children were male between the age of 6 and 9 years old and have another comorbid condition. The most commonly comorbid condition was ADHD. Now with the result. So I will be presenting the result according to the aims of the study. So our first aim was to describe parents' experiences attaining autism diagnosis for their children. So most parents first noted the difficulties after the age of 2 years. This is very late compared to studies were conducted in the United States and Canada. Difficulty were related to impairments in language and development and socialization. Also, most parents sought help before their child was 3 years old from a pediatrician. And the outcome of the first consultation was receiving the diagnosis. Most children were given the diagnosis after the age of 3 by a psychiatrist in major cities. Most children, so the overall satisfaction with the diagnostic process was kind of low. It's slightly over a third of the parents were satisfied with the diagnostic process. So regarding the first, with respect to the second aim, which is to examine the factors that associate with the satisfaction of the diagnostic process, 4 factors associated with the diagnostic process. So perceiving the relationship with professional as collaborative and perceiving post-diagnostic support and information giving at the diagnosis as helpful, and also being in a household income below the sufficiency lines or from the sufficiency lines to 100% above, this actually increased the odds of satisfaction. While time taking to receive the diagnosis only for those who lived in major cities lower the odds of satisfaction. And the last one is an interaction term. The third aim is actually to describe the parents' use of early intervention services. So most children receive 1 to 6 hours per week of early intervention services after the age of 4. Now we see many children have no access to early intervention services, missing the critical period, which is the first 3 years of life. The last aim is to identify the factor that delay the age of treatment initiation and reduce the use of early intervention services. Factors associated with the age of treatment, treatment initiation, including the child age, severity, being a resident of a major city. So as children gets older, their age of starting treatments, they start treatment at a later age compared to children who are young. With respect to severity, also severity has the same coefficient. Being a resident of a major city, as we mentioned initially, Riyadh, Dammam, and Jeddah, was associated with an earlier age of treatment initiation when compared to those who lived in a non-major city, which is other city in Saudi Arabia. Factor associated with the dose of treatment or the dose of early intervention services, which measure in hours per week, were household income. So, in a very simple way, if you have a higher income, you tend to receive more hours of early intervention services per week. So our findings, here is a summary of our findings. Parents were late in noticing difficulties compared to parents who compared to parents in developed countries, including the US and Canada. Many parents were dissatisfied with the diagnostic process. Many children did not receive early intervention services during the first 3 years of life. So it's important to improve parents' awareness, specifically to increase their knowledge and understanding of their child development. As such, parents will report any difficulty to receive the diagnosis and after that to receive the early intervention services. Also, another implication is to mandate early identification and intervention services in Saudi Arabia. This study has limitations. First, the sample was not fully representative of family of children with autism in Saudi Arabia. Specifically, we were missing parents of children who have limited access to the internet. We were missing children who have mild symptoms. Also, the findings were based on parents' reports. This might have biased our finding. Despite these limitations, this study provides an important information to improve the quality of service in Saudi Arabia. More information is needed about existing services. Future research should include, or future researchers should examine how services that assist children with autism are structured and organized. Also, they need to gain a better understanding about the type and the quality of available early intervention services. Thank you.
Thank you. لنا مجال لسؤال أو سؤالين عند استفسارات. في أحد سؤال؟ طيب. بهذا في هناك في الأخير. تفضل. في المايك عندك. بس اضغط على اليمين. أيوه. تفضل.
Actually, my question is for Dr. Christopher, if that's possible. You have mentioned in your presentation about an app that is used as an assessment tool through observation. And if I understand correctly, so parent or a relative take a video of their child and then post it on the app, and then a professional or psychiatric or psychologist observe these video clips and then start diagnosing the child. Is this right? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's
okay.
right.
So I was wondering, I'm not sure if you have mentioned this already, where was this app used? And do I understand that you recommend that we start using it here in Saudi Arabia?
It hasn't yet been used in Saudi Arabia. It's been used exclusively in the United States, primarily in Phoenix. But as I said, as part of the original study that we did, we sent videos from the original 50 families that participated in that study to 10 different clinicians that lived in all different areas of the United States. So it's kind of proving that one of the strengths of this method is that you can access a diagnostic professional that lives anywhere. who can review the information and use their clinical judgment to determine the diagnosis.
Okay, and do you think the community, the Saudi community in specific, would actually approve this type of assessment?
I don't know that I can speak to that, whether or not the Saudi community would approve that kind of assessment. I don't know. I think there are definite concerns to overcome when using this kind of approach. Specifically, issues of confidentiality and privacy. But I do think it's not just a online. It doesn't go to YouTube. It is like a secure web-based platform that's in the United States. It's HIPAA and FERPA compliant, meaning that it's taking every protection that it can take to protect the individuals that go through this kind of process and make sure that the records are confidential. But it does takes some getting used to, right? So it's not easily adaptable right away.
Thank you. شكرا جزيلا للجميع. تفضل.
السلام عليكم.
السلام.
سميرة بنت عبد الله، رئيسة جمعية أسر التوحد الخيرية. أشكر المتحدثين وأشكر مركز الملك سلمان لأبحاث الإعاقة على تنظيم هالمؤتمر. أحب بس أعلق على الأخت. الآن وصلوا الأسر من الوعي ما يسمح أنهم يعني يعرضون عيالهم أو أنهم يقيمون عيالهم عن طريق التطبيق. جمعية أسر التوحد من أهم أهدافها شيلة الوصمة أن الطفل التوحدي عنده اضطراب مثل أي اضطراب آخر، وإن شاء الله في الأمراض النفسية الأخرى في المملكة العربية السعودية بدأت تظهر وبدأوا الأسر تفتخر بعيالها. وشكرا لكم.
شكرا جزيلا، ونشوفكم إن شاء الله غدا. شكرا دكتور فهد for your presentation. Thank you very much.